The GOP thought they had the Senate on lock heading into November. With a solid 53-47 majority, the national map was supposed to be an absolute defensive nightmare for Democrats, who are busy just trying to protect vulnerable seats in places like Michigan and Georgia.
But as you'll see in this explainer, an oysterman with a controversial tattoo, a governor obsessed with making stuff cost less, and a $1,000 Trump account for newborns are about to set the 2026 map on fire. The traditional playbooks are literally being thrown out the window right now.
But here's where it gets complicated. When we look at the 2026 Senate map, we aren't looking at a sweeping national wave election. We're looking at a highly concentrated, razor-thin battlefield that has fundamentally shifted in just the last few months.
Democrats need a net gain of exactly 4 seats to overcome that 53-47 Republican majority and take control of the chamber. Just 4 seats. That means they're forced to thread a very narrow, highly volatile needle. To pull that off, they've identified 3 very specific, unconventional states where the data shows they actually have a path.
The true catalyst shifting these battlegrounds isn't just local politics, though. It's the OBBBA catalyst, the massive legislative package passed by the 119th Congress known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. This is the centerpiece of the Republican economic message, and it has completely rewired the midterm dynamics.
The Gore conflict of the 2026 cycle really comes down to a clash of priorities, immediate cash in hand versus long-term rights. On one side, the OBBBA delivers serious immediate wallet relief. We're talking retroactive tax deductions for tipped wages and overtime pay, plus those $1,000 Trump accounts for newborns. It's immediate financial help. But on the flip side, the legislation enacted deep cuts to clean energy subsidies, like phasing out the $7,500 clean vehicle credit, alongside a secondary wave of administrative restrictions on reproductive rights. So the ultimate test here is whether voters prioritize that immediate financial relief or those long-term environmental and social protections.
Let's shift the conversation down to the ground level and look at Maine's grandparent pivot. Mainstream polling is completely missing a massive demographic realignment happening here right now. Maine was supposed to be a standard race where incumbent Republican Senator Susan Collins just cruised to victory on her reputation as a moderate institutionalist.
But check this out. A hidden insight reveals a massive shift. 63% of voters surveyed in Maine currently support Medicare for all. This is the exact platform of Graham Platner, an oysterman and veteran who rapidly built a viral movement that completely sidelined the state's Democratic establishment. Now, he's often branded as a radical populist, but here's the thing. Maine has the oldest electorate in the entire country, and right now, a huge portion of those seniors are the primary caregivers for their grandchildren. Platner's push for healthcare and childcare reform isn't radical to them at all. It is fiercely resonating with their everyday economic survival.
And this connects directly back to the legislative domino effect of the OBBBA. See, Maine just lost $62 million in federal Solar for All grants because of that new legislation. That massive loss essentially shattered Senator Collins' famous appropriation shield. For decades, her main pitch has been that her seniority guarantees federal money for Maine. But with that $62 million suddenly gone, challengers like Platner are successfully arguing that her seniority doesn't actually protect the state's local economy anymore in such a hyper-partisan Washington.
Now let's pivot naturally down to North Carolina's urban surge, because a completely different set of dominoes is falling in the South. This is a battle for an open seat vacated by retiring Senator Thom Tillis, and honestly, it represents the Democrats' premier opportunity to flip a state. Just look at this staggering number, 84,000. That's the influx of new domestic migrants into North Carolina in a single year, making it the highest in the nation. And nearly 80% of that growth is packed right into the Research Triangle and the Charlotte metro area, while rural counties are actually facing population decline. This is rapidly widening the urban-rural cleavage. The traditional rural advantages the GOP has relied on for years, they're shrinking fast against this booming suburban power.
And this demographic shift ties directly into the legislative fallout we talked about earlier. We're seeing a massive unaffiliated shift. 39% of North Carolina's electorate is now unaffiliated. And these voters are deeply concerned about the administration's goals, specifically the use of the Comstock Act to restrict medication abortion. The Democratic candidate, former Governor Roy Cooper, has framed this race as the absolute last line of defense against those restrictions. Because of how he's positioned this, these crucial unaffiliated voters are moving massively toward Cooper, currently favoring him by a +20 margin over the Republican candidate, Michael Whatley.
The financial reality of this momentum is pretty stark, too. In the first quarter of 2026, Cooper hauled in a massive $13.8 million, which completely dwarfs Whatley's $5 million. But this isn't just a difference in dollars. It's a total collision of strategies. Cooper's steady institutionalism and his relentless campaign to make stuff cost less is effectively boxing out Whatley's nationalized populism as they battle over the state's future.
Look, when you add all of this up, the cause and effect points to some very concrete final predictions for November. We aren't just looking at isolated data points anymore. We are watching real structural shifts in how these key states operate.
Based on the cascading effects of that urban surge and the massive unaffiliated shift, our first clear prediction is that North Carolina flips blue, and Roy Cooper captures the seat vacated by Thom Tillis. Cooper's consistent 8 to 10-point polling lead, his near-universal name recognition in the state, and that overwhelming financial advantage make this the Democrats' absolute most likely pickup on the map.
Now stay with me on this, because we need to transition seamlessly to the final frontier of Alaska. Historically, this carries a lean Republican rating, but look at these metrics. Democratic challenger Mary Peltola has reached absolute financial parity with incumbent Republican Dan Sullivan. They are sitting at 8.9 million to 9 million. More importantly, Sullivan's approval rating has completely tanked to just 39%.
But the true wildcard here is the mechanics of Alaska's ranked choice voting system. They use a top 4 primary and ranked choice. Basically, if no one gets a 50% majority, the lowest candidate is eliminated and their votes immediately transfer to the voters' second choices. This system perfectly suits Peltola's fish family freedom message. She doesn't have to rely purely on a partisan base. She is structurally positioned to consolidate crossover votes from independents and moderate Republicans who are just fatigued by the current establishment.
Which leads directly to our final bold prediction. Mary Peltola unseats Dan Sullivan through a narrow crossover victory in Alaska. She is successfully leveraging intense local frustration over systemic costs. I mean, she continually points out that milk costs $17 a gallon in rural Alaska, while Sullivan's personal wealth has quadrupled. In a state where crossover appeal is literally built right into the ballot mechanics, that contrast is absolutely enough to pull off the upset.
So the dominoes are falling, but the ultimate shape they take is still up for debate. I want to pass this directly over to you. Looking at these vastly different battlegrounds, is Graham Platner's Oysterman populist energy the new blueprint for winning rural states, or is Roy Cooper's steady institutionalism the only safe bet for Democrats to actually win the South? Let us know what you think in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.
An investment in knowledge pays the best interest, so why not invest in this channel? Click like and subscribe for more.